This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, September 19th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 801 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke announced yesterday a proposed plan to award grants to people who have been jailed for nonviolent marijuana charges. The so-called justice grants will be funded by taxes from legal marijuana sales and would be given out to people in varying amounts depending on their time spent in jail. As part of the plan's release, O'Rourke said, quote, "These inequalities have compounded for decades as predominantly white communities have been given the vast majority of lucrative business opportunities, while communities of color still face over-policing and criminalization. It's our responsibility to begin to remedy the injustices of the past and to help the people and communities most impacted by this misguided war," unquote. It's pretty awesome that major presidential candidates are now talking about social justice like this. More all around. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser issued an order yesterday freeing up many of the city's employees from having to worry about passing drug tests for marijuana, as the new policy allows employees who don't have safety-sensitive jobs like police and firefighters to consume cannabis in their off-duty hours, either for medical or adult use purposes. Marijuana activist and local D.C. rabble-rouser Adam Eidinger is criticizing the plan for not going far enough, pointing out that since marijuana drug tests can pick up on use from weeks or even months prior, they're not actually an indicator of impairment, and that alcohol, a demonstrably more dangerous drug to use, is not tested for at all. Either way, it's still a big move for a major U.S. city to give the green light to its employees to get high. So, good news here. Keeping our sights in D.C. for our final top headline of the day, we have California Congresswoman Maxine Waters saying that the Safe Banking Act, which would allow banks and financial institutions to work with state legal cannabis, will go for a full House vote, despite a letter written this week by civil and human rights organizations to Democratic House leaders, urging a delay until more comprehensive social justice issues are addressed via legislation. Congresswoman Waters told Kyle Yeager over Marijuana Moment that broader, more holistic legislation addressing social equity was still bound up in the House Judiciary Committee, chaired by Congressman Gerald Nadler of New York, who has his own piece of proposed legislation in the works. That bill, the Marijuana Opportunity, Reinvestment, and Expungement Act, or the MORE Act, does touch on things like restorative justice and social equity. There's a lot of convoluted detail here, so I'd direct you over to Kyle's piece for the full dive in. But in short, it still seems like we should see the Safe Banking Act go before the full House before the end of the month. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. If you need legal marijuana products that are properly tested, packaged, and labeled, then you're going to love the ease and convenience of shopping at ease.com. As a response to the ongoing concern over health problems caused by the use of some kinds of vaporizers, Ease took the step to ensure that none of the products sold on the Ease platform use vitamin E acetate, one of the main suspected causes of the health problems seen. Open up ease.com/home to read more, and then while you're there, check out all the other options up for order, all of which land at your door less than an hour after you hit submit. And for those of us outside California or the Portland, Oregon area, there's easewellness.com, which puts professionally curated hemp-derived CBD products in your mailbox in just 4 to 6 business days. Big thanks to everyone over at Ease for the support that keeps our news lights on. All right, time for the Blitz. Yesterday, the New Hampshire House of Representatives voted 259 to 120 to override a veto of Republican Governor Chris Sununu of a bill that would allow medical marijuana patients and caregivers the right to grow cannabis at home. House Bill 364 still has to have its veto voted on by the state Senate, which originally passed it by a count of 14-10, whereas a veto override will require a vote of 16-8. So there's still some uncertainty there. The Senate will decide on the matter later today, though, so best of luck to medical marijuana reform activists in the Granite State in pushing that through. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has proposed a zoning map for legal adult use marijuana businesses that would keep dispensaries out of the downtown area entirely. There's pushback on the plan, though, with Alderman Brendan Riley, whose district lies in the downtown business zone, pointing out the city's $838 million budget shortfall and asking if it's really such a good idea to forego the potential revenue generated by downtown cannabis business taxes. Ontario, Canada wasted more than $10 million Canadian on building out infrastructure for a state-run legal marijuana sales program that the province later decided to abandon in favor of allowing private businesses. That's the total burned by the Ontario Cannabis Retail Corporation, the province-owned business created in the run-up to adult use legalization last year that was to have had a monopoly on province sales, which it lost out last year after a policy change to embrace the private sector. California officials say that over half of the state's legal marijuana businesses are now enrolled in the official track and trace program for cannabis production, with expectations that most of the remaining half will be likewise enrolled by the end of October. Companies that are enrolled have properly registered with the system and trained their employees on its use, but that status does not mean they're actually using it to track their day-to-day operations, so there's still plenty of tires to kick and bugs to work out there. A federal judge in Indiana has ruled that the state's ban on the smoking of industrial hemp is unconstitutional. The finding is localized to Indiana and doesn't affect any of the handful of other states like Kentucky that have enacted similar bans, but it does free up the citizens of Indiana to roll up big fat joints of hemp should they choose. U.S. District Court Judge Sarah Evan Barker acknowledged that police might have a harder time enforcing cannabis law, given that hemp and THC marijuana are indistinguishable from one another, but that inconvenience does not rise to the level of superseding the Constitution. Alaska is considering changing up its rules for who is allowed to open up legal marijuana testing labs in the face of a shortage of qualified labs, which has created a slowdown in the ability of legal marijuana businesses to bring new product to market. Alaska currently does not allow outside investors to own testing labs, which has made it harder for local entrepreneurs to raise enough capital to start new testing companies, which are generally very expensive to spool up. Right now, the Alaskan Marijuana Control Board is asking for public comments on the proposed plan. And finally for today, we have an interesting story involving a non-industry company getting into bed, so to speak, with legal marijuana in an interesting way. The Casper mattress company is partnering up with marijuana firm Plus to produce CBD-infused sleep aids to be called Plus Sleep and to be marketed through Casper's various channels. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.